Okay, this is an extremely important topic and a very challenging topic. And I want to say that at the outset, because I want you to know that there are going to be ideas which, in the limited time we have, I may not be able to thoroughly discourse with you, but they will be challenging. And so I'm going to ask you to be open. Okay? Just be open to the possibility. Anyone ever tell you that before? Be open to the possibility. You know? When your ideas are really out there, you have to say that. Okay, so I'd like to begin with a story. And the story, you should have the handout. And the story is there if you were reading it, but I'm going to just paraphrase it and tell it to you. You can read it later. But it's a story about Dr. Leva Beaton Jackson. She, a very interesting and accomplished Jewish woman who wrote a memoir called, I believe it's I Lived 1,000 Lives. And she shared a story of an encounter that she had with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, with the Rebbe. She's a Holocaust survivor. She was 13 years old. Her father was informed that all of the men are going to be taken to a forced labor camp. That night, and that was the last time she saw her father. She comes to America eventually after the war. She's at, I think it was a conference, and she meets a tall, handsome, dark young man, a Moroccan Jew. They date for 5 months. She gets married. Everything is great. They go on their honeymoon, and suddenly, she says, out of nowhere, he smacks her across the face. It was the first time she was hit by someone since being hit by an SS Nazi officer. She was completely shocked, discovering that her husband had some mental issues, and as the years went on, would continue to completely abuse her, as you'll read in the story. If he didn't like the dinner, he would just throw it against the wall. He beat her up severely once. She went to a number of rabbis to try and get, a bill of divorce. And this young man actually was a Torah scholar, which didn't help the situation for her. And the rabbis always wanted to find a way of reconciliation. And so she was suffering through this turmoil with no resolution. Her husband just had his second breakdown and was in the hospital. And a friend of hers told her, why don't you go to the Rebbe? Just go to the Rebbe and speak to him. And so that's what she did. She made an appointment. And some of you are familiar with the fact that the Rebbe would meet people from about 8 p.m. at night until 6 a.m. in the morning. And so she had an appointment for 15 minutes at 2 a.m. But it was worth it, and she went. And she comes into the office, and she gave in a note as to why she wants to see the Rebbe about the divorce. That's really what she wanted. And the Rebbe immediately asks her about her father. Tell me about your father. And she says that, the last time she saw her father was the night before he went to a forced labor camp. The last time she ever saw him, he was studying Talmud, and he told her brother, whenever you study this piece of Talmud, remember me. And she started yelling at her father, like, why are you saying that? We're going to see you again. You're just going. You're going to come back. The next morning, he got up. For whatever reason, she was not awakened, so she didn't say goodbye to him, and that was the last time she ever saw him. He was killed a little while later. She was taken to concentration camps, and so she shared the story with her about her father, and she said, you asked about my father, this is the last thing I remember about my father. The Rebbe was very visibly moved by that. And then the Rebbe asked her, why, what's going on, with the get? Why do you want to get? So she said that my husband actually tried to strangle me and kill me, and if my neighbor didn't hear and run in, I probably would not be alive. So the Rebbe said, I am going to call up Reb Moshe Feinstein. He was the leading halachic authority living at that time. And I am going to speak to him to ensure that you get a get from your husband. Every time you want a get, your husband claims to have a breakdown, and that prevents him from getting a get. And so therefore, I'm going to ask Rabbi Moshe Feinstein to go to the hospital while he's under medical care and issue the get, have it written and issued right there. And in the ensuing conversation, while they were talking throughout this entire time, the secretary was sticking his head in because it was past 15 minutes, and the Rebbe kept on saying, close the door. He wanted to continue having this conversation. And throughout the conversation, the Rebbe said, I hear that your native language isn't Yiddish. You know, what? And so they started to, so she said German. So the Rebbe said, I studied in Berlin. Let's speak in German. And so they spoke for a few minutes in German, and then the Rebbe said, do you know any other languages? While they're conversing about everything. And she says, French. He says, oh, I studied in the Sorbonne. And they spoke French. Then they spoke, of course, Russian. The Rebbe was from Russia. They spoke Russian. And they went through a number of, and then they spoke Ivrit. They spoke Hebrew. And the Rebbe was doing this strange thing of all these different languages. And then after the Rebbe told her that he's going to arrange that she will have a get, he blessed her that after she gets the get, that she should find a bashert, a proper person, marry him and have a good life and have a successful life. She got up to leave, and on her way to the door, the Rebbe says, are there any other languages that you speak? So she said, I speak Hungarian. So the Rebbe smiled at her and said, you upped me by one, I don't speak Hungarian. And she left. I want to ask you all a question. What is it about this story and the interaction between the Rebbe and this woman that touched you? I'm sure if we go through the, our group tonight, we would have different responses. I want to get to the core of all of the responses. And that is this, that here is a woman who, at a very young age, lost one of the bedrocks in her life, her father. Right? Thank God she had her mother. Her mother survived as well, and a brother. But she lost her father, which is a significant part of her foundation, of her support. And then she comes to America, she gets married, and she gets married with the hope, as anyone that gets married has, that this person is going to be my bedrock, my support, by my side. And she finds out that not only is this person not a support, but this person is actually a physical danger to her, as of course an emotional danger, but even a physical danger to her. And she now has a meeting with the Rebbe to deal with a technicality, and that is, how do I take care of business? How do I get a get? And the Rebbe spent most of the time with her not dealing with the get. That was the quickest part of their meeting. He said the Rebbe knew exactly what he was going to do to arrange the get, which itself was a beautiful thing because other rabbis didn't do that. However, the Rebbe spent a lot of time speaking to her about her. And the Rebbe spent a lot of time speaking in different languages and continuously doing that until he was able to show her that she has something more than he does. You have one more than me. That's what he spent his time doing, because he wanted her to know that she is a special, valuable person. That her existence makes a difference. That's what the Rebbe wanted to give to her. Because that's what she needed, perhaps more than anything else. To know that she is 100% unconditionally acceptable. Even though many events in her life have been telling her otherwise. That's what I think touches the core of a person who hears this story. Why? Why does it touch us? It touches us because every single human being without failure is seeking the very same thing. Every one of us is desperate to know and to live every day of our lives knowing that I am unconditionally acceptable. I am fine the way I am. I don't need to prove myself to anyone. I don't need to show you that I'm deserving, or that I'm worthy, or that I'm acceptable, or that I'm lovable. That's what we all want, and we're desperate for that. And that's what's so touching whenever we have an experience where we see that demonstrated, where someone demonstrates to someone else that truth, that you are unconditionally acceptable. The challenge, though, is How do we achieve this? Because, as we're going to discuss, for the most part, just about everyone goes through life asking themselves, does my existence matter? Do I make a difference? Am I worthy? Am I acceptable? Am I lovable? And that's a question that's a very, very human question. And not only is this something that we live with, I would like to show you, to the best of my ability, how we are consumed with this. And almost everything we do in life is actually tainted by this desire. That's how desperate we are to actually experience this reality. And then hopefully, I'm going to be able to at least explain in concept how we can achieve this, and even give you a bit of a method on how to achieve it, and how to actually not only achieve it for yourself, but provide it to those around you. That's our agenda tonight. Big agenda? Okay. I'll do my best in the time we have. What ends up happening out of our deep desire to know that we are unconditionally acceptable is that we become, as it said in the flyer, we become perpetual seekers. We perpetually seek out acceptance from others. And this comes out of a very deep desperation that we need to know, just like we need oxygen for our body to survive, our being, our core needs to know that I am acceptable in order for me to survive. Let me give you an analogy, okay, where it's the summer, right? You want to relax. It's a Sunday afternoon, or maybe it's a Monday afternoon and you're on vacation. And you say, okay, you're going to go out to the pool. You'll sit down in a lounge chair. You just bought a new book from Barnes & Noble, mint condition. Or you have a Kindle, if you're more advanced, okay? Right? And you're going to sit on the lounge chair in the sun, feel the warmth of the sun, feel loved by the sun, and you're going to read your book and relax. Get away from everything that's going on in your life. So you sit down by the pool and you're relaxing and you're reading your mint condition book or your Kindle. And there you are, 15 minutes into your reading, when all of a sudden, splash, you get soaked. Someone just, you know how in the pool, at least this is what we used to. We used to push the water and just to splash someone. Someone just threw a torrent of water all over you. Your book is soaked, or your Kindle is at the risk of actually not surviving. It got wet. And you're infuriated. Like, what are you doing? Right? So you jump up to see which scoundrel just soaked you. And you come over to the pool, and when you get to the pool, what do you see? You see a man drowning. And in a moment, everything changes. You're no longer angry. Everything is, from your book is not the issue, and your Kindle's not the issue. The issue is this guy. Everything completely changes, right? Let's talk about this guy for a minute. We'll talk about you maybe later if we can get back to you. Okay, let's talk about the guy for a minute, right? I don't want to get personal, so we'll talk about him, right? So he's drowning, right? When he splashed you, why did he splash you? You're, as they would say, you're collateral damage. He could care less whether he splashed you or didn't splash you. He had no intention of splashing you. He was actually trying to survive. That's why he splashed you. The point is, now I'm going to come to you and to me. We are so often in a state of drowning. We actually feel like we're drowning and we're gasping for air. The air that we're gasping for, though, is not oxygen. That's much easier to get. What we're gasping for is the awareness to know that I am significant, that I matter, that I'm important. And so therefore, in our desperation, we do many things which actually splash other people. Our intention really isn't them. We have no issue. We don't really have an issue with them. The issue is going on in here. And the issue is that I don't know that I'm significant. Let me give you a few examples of how we splash other people. Okay? And I want to say this. Some of the examples, I want to create 3 categories here of the examples I'm going to give you, okay? These are going to be your categories. One category are going to be things that are going to resonate with you very well and say, oh my gosh, how does he know? That's because you and we're all the same in this. That's how I know, right? Then there are going to be things that you can say, that's not me. I never do that. Okay, that's good. Okay? We're all different. And then there are going to be some things that you're going to say, what? That whole thing doesn't make any sense. And if you get to that point, that's where I'm asking you to just be a little bit more open. Okay? Now, you may be right. You may be right. But just open yourself up a little bit more to the possibility that you're not. Okay? Let me give you one example of drowning behaviors, of splashing behaviors that we do, which, again, is not because I have something against you. Right? The insult or the lie or whatever that I'm throwing at you has nothing personal. In fact, it's only because I'm desperate. And when we're desperate, we splash and people get wet. That's what happens. So there are many subtle sugar coatings that we do throughout our day or throughout our week. You know what sugar coating is, right? So you have a week-old chicken and you have guests coming over and you want to give them something to eat, so you splash on a heavy dose of some syrup and here you go, right? So let me give you an example. And so we sugarcoat things with little lies. And I'm not even talking about the ethics of lies. That's not the issue here. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about a very problematic behavior that we have learned. Okay? As an example, I'm coming home late from work. Right? I'm coming home late. I could be coming home late for a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe I decided I need a few minutes of peace. I stop by the bar or by the coffee shop or whatever fits your fancy to get 15 minutes to myself. And now I'm coming home late. So my wife calls me up and asks me, when are you going to be home? You know? So I say, oh, I'm stuck in traffic, so I'm running a little bit late. Right? Why don't I just say I stopped at Starbucks for 15 minutes just to catch my breath after a long day? Or why didn't I say I stopped at the bar? Why did I have to create this subtle lie? Now, I know we have 10 different justifications for why we do that. I know that. But I want to suggest that the primary reason why we do that is because we are concerned of criticism that's going to come to us on behalf of that, and we can't handle anything that's going to question my value, my acceptance, my worthiness. And so therefore we use a little subtle lie. Okay? Can anyone relate to that? Not that you do it, but can you relate to that, me doing that? Can you relate to me doing that? Okay. A friend calls you up for a favor, right? And so they ask you, can you do such and such a thing, right? And you say, I can't do that now because whatever, right? The truth, of course, is you could, but you just don't want to. This is a classic story with a Baal Shem Tov where there was a Polish peasant knocked on the window when they were studying and asked them to help schlep the wagon out of the mud. And so the students went to the window. So Baal Shem Tov said, what was the conversation? He asked if we can help, and then the Baal Shem Tov said, what did you tell him? So the student said, I told him that we can't. So the Baal Shem Tov said, it's not that you can't, it's that you don't want. Very big difference. But why is it that why don't I tell my friend I don't want to? I'm not in the mood. Why is it that I need to tell my friend I can't? I'm not able to now because whatever. I'm tied down with whatever it is. The reason why is I'm suggesting that we are concerned that we are going to lose the acceptance of my friend. And because I'm so desperate for the acceptance of my friend, what I do is I sugarcoat it so that I won't lose my acceptance, because I change the way I speak so that I can gain acceptance from other people. Another example. Your spouse or someone asks you to pick something up from the store, right? Can you pick up milk from the store on your way home? Sure, right? And you come home, if you're like me, what do you come home with or without? The milk, right? Forgot, whatever, How many times do I have to tell you something? Okay, so anyway, a lot of times. You probably know that by now. But, right, so what do we say? Oh, did you get the milk? So what do we say? We don't say, I forgot. Oh my gosh, I was so busy, I didn't have time to stop. Right? Again, same thing. Why don't we just say, I forgot? Because if I say I forgot, I am saying that I did something wrong. I may lose favor, and I'm terrified of that. And therefore, I sugarcoat it. That's one thing we do. There's something else we do very, very commonly. Some people live most people live a full life of this, and that is blaming in order to protect ourselves. We blame people in order to protect ourselves. For example, I'm going to give you a classic, and this is a subject in and of itself, so I'm not going to get carried away with it. But we always say, he got me so angry that I had to. Okay? We blame all of our feelings and emotions on other people. Like as if our emotions and feelings are completely not in my control, they're in everyone else's control. And why do I blame it? Because this way, don't hold me accountable, I'm a good guy, accept me, I'm fine. It's because that person said that to me that made me so furious that when I came home I couldn't talk to you. That's the process. Okay? Another example would be, she wouldn't let me off the phone. And you're looking at them and saying, 1 second, they're like 100 miles away. What do you mean they didn't let you off the phone? And you weren't tied to the phone. You could have just said, I need to go, goodbye, right? But we don't say, we don't admit to, I could have said. I didn't want to tell them that I need to go because they may be upset with me and I need their acceptance. I'm desperate for their acceptance. Another example. If you wouldn't always X, then I wouldn't Y. This is a classic couple thing, right? If you wouldn't this, then I wouldn't that. As if like, because you do this, I have to do that, right? So I am blaming you for what I am doing. Why do I need, the bottom line is, why do I need to blame? Because if I'm not blaming someone, I have to carry responsibility, and I'm scared that I'm going to lose favor in your eyes. I'm going to lose your acceptance.
Is it possible that you can't accept that you're not, that you don't like yourself and that maybe you're not perfect? Is it possible that it's not about the other person but your own outlook on yourself?
Yeah, it is actually. That's exactly the point. Yeah, exactly what I'm saying actually. In other words, because I'm so scared that I am not worthy, I'm not valuable, so I am desperate to do anything I can to make sure the people around me accept me. And anything that even would insinuate to me that you're not going to accept me terrifies me so much that I start doing all of these different things. I start blaming or lying or making all of these excuses. And it's all has to do with me. It has nothing to do with the other person. I don't know if I can tell the other person I need to go, I need to hang up now, and they're fine with it. In my concern, because of my desperation of seeking acceptance, I do all of these different behaviors in order to gain acceptance. And I want to emphasize this. We do all of these things in order to gain acceptance of other people. That's why we're doing it. And I'm going to demonstrate to you soon how not only do these things not gain acceptance by other people, it does the exact opposite. It distances us from other people. And this is going to be hopefully a key paradigm shift over there when we get there. A few more little things, okay? Some people seek out praise from other people all of the time. Why? That's direct feedback that I am worthy and I am acceptable, I am valuable. So we seek out acceptance from other people. That's a large part of what perfectionists are. I like to be a little bit of a perfectionist. I'm sure there's some others here who are, it's just a characteristic, but actually what it comes from is that I can't do something wrong. Why not? Do something wrong. What's the problem? See, you did it wrong, right? Because if I do something wrong, I'm scared I'm going to lose the favor of the people around me. Another example is, this is a very important example. I'm sitting by a meeting, okay? And I share an idea. The idea actually isn't my idea, it's someone else's idea. Someone just told me that idea, but they're not by the meeting. So I share the idea, and I get all these compliments for this brilliant idea. I don't say it wasn't my idea actually, it was so-and-so's idea. I say, thank you very much, thank you. Right? Right? Why don't I just admit that it was the other person's idea? Why do I desperately need to hold on to this falsehood or create this impression that it was my idea? Because I desperately am seeking praise from other people. Why am I seeking praise? Why do I need praise from other people? I'm fine. Because I'm not fine in my head. I'm constantly seeking acceptance. Disappointed when I'm not complimented. Do you ever have that? You do something and they don't compliment you afterwards and you get disappointed. Like, no one said anything. What's wrong with them? I did such a good job and no one could say, give me one compliment. You did a good job, fantastic. You did it for the compliments? Possibly. It sounds like it, right? Maybe we need acceptance from that. One last example. You get upset, well, this is the same thing actually. You get upset when you're not acknowledged. This is like, I remember this when I was in school and I would sit in class. If the teacher didn't make eye contact with me for a very long time, I began to feel like, the teacher is overlooking me. And part of the way I got acceptance was when the teacher made eye contact with me. Right? So sometimes we feel like, hey, he didn't say hello to me, he didn't acknowledge me, he didn't see me, etc., etc. Okay, let's do this, and then I'm going to make you bother yourself a little bit, and then I'm going to explain to you why this is all of the things that I just explained that we so often do in order to gain acceptance from other people. Not only does it not gain acceptance, it actually distances us from other people. But before we go there, please go to page 4 on the source sheet, in the source sheets. Number 2. And if you have a pen, do this for yourself. Hide it so no one will see it, but do it for yourself. Okay? Do you get nervous when speaking to certain people? Do you change your view in the middle of a conversation? Do you change your view in the middle of a conversation? Worry that people may think you don't look good? Yes or no? Do you get disappointed if people don't notice you, as I just mentioned before? Do you get offended when people don't show you appreciation? Do you praise people to encourage them to do more of what you want them to do? False praise. And lastly, do you make people feel guilty when they don't do what you want? These are all different forms of behaviors, which I'm not going to analyze. I know you may have questions on some of them, and I'll be happy to discuss after the talk. But these are all different forms of us doing things, behaving in ways in order to gain acceptance. And the reason why we're seeking to gain acceptance so desperately, so that it affects the way we speak throughout the day, the way we interact with people throughout the day, etc., is all because we need the oxygen that every human being needs to know that I am acceptable. And the reason why everything we do is counterproductive is for this very reason. It's for a reason that the Torah teaches us right in the beginning of the Torah. The first time someone did something wrong was when? Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve ate from the tree. God told them, don't eat from this tree. And they ate from the tree. Don't touch those chocolate chip cookies, and 3 are missing in the morning, right? Right? So they didn't listen, right? They did something that they knew was wrong. What did they do immediately after they ate from the tree? What? Even before that? Even before that? They hid. They hid. This is the key. They hid. Let's go to number 3, okay, on page 4. When the woman saw that the tree produced edible fruit, which was attractive to the eye and desirable for making one wise, she took some of its fruit and ate it. She also gave some of it to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. She was sharing dinner with him. Then the eyes of both of them opened, and they knew they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Then the man and the wife heard the sound of the Lord moving about in the garden, and they hid from the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. But the Lord called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" The man replied, did God not know where he was? God lost sight of him? He wasn't wearing a, So, of course God knew where he was. God was opening up the conversation for him because he saw that they went into hiding. They weren't dealing with what happened. They were scared, so they were hiding. And the man replied, I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. Now I want to just tell you a little piece of information. Adam was naked before he ate from the tree also, but he never felt the need to hide from God. Right? Suddenly he ate from the tree, and now he needs to hide from God because he was naked. He didn't have to hide from God because he was naked. Why did he have to hide from God? Because he ate from the tree that God told him not to eat from. But he didn't say that. Sugarcoating. It's true he's naked, and it's true he's hiding. So I'm hiding because I'm naked, and it's true that God sees everything. So, right? It's all true, no lies, but he's hiding terribly. That's really what's going on. And so, and he said, so God says to him, who told you that you are naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat? So God doesn't say you ate from the tree. It's a big lesson we learn from God. God doesn't put him into a corner. God leaves him with a way to deal with it, to come forward and say, I ate. He said, did you eat from the tree? Is that a possibility? What does he say? Still hides. And the man said, but you know who he's blaming over here? Listen to this one. The man said, he's not even blaming his wife. All the women say, yeah, the first man was already blaming his wife. Actually, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, so I ate. He's blaming God for the woman that you gave me. That's why I ate from the tree. Blaming. He's hiding, he's blaming, he's lying. He did the whole class for me. All in one story. That's how accomplished he is. Right? So if you continue over here, you'll see this is really, I sort of threw everything that's in this next paragraph into it. God knew where he was. God was really asking where he's at. Adam was hiding, right? Didn't Adam do something which caused him to suddenly become so self-conscious? Of course he did, but he was too scared to expose his wrongdoing, so he went into hiding. The biggest tragedy of his hiding was not that he was hiding from God, it's that he began hiding from himself. Because when we begin to lie, who are we deceiving? Ourselves. We begin to believe that it really is your fault. When I blame you, I really begin to believe that it is you. And that's why I said before, be a little bit open, because when we behave a certain way so often, we actually begin to believe that's the truth. But it really is his fault. And so that's actually the biggest tragedy. He began losing touch with reality. You lose touch with reality, you're not dealing with reality. He made the issue his nakedness. That wasn't the real issue. He was naked before he went into hiding. The real issue was his eating from the tree. What's even more surprising is that after God exposes his wrongdoing, he continues to hide. He blames God. Okay, this is a very, very telling story. But the most telling part of the story that I want to bring out is this: when we conduct ourselves with any form of behavior where we are hiding, what we are doing is we are not permitting the people we are in a relationship with to be close to us, because we're closing the door. We're covering ourselves. We're hiding. So every time we blame, in order to make ourselves look good, acceptable, actually what we're doing is creating a huge distance between us and the other person, because we're hiding and we're not letting them draw close to us. When we are honest, we make ourselves vulnerable, which is scary. We actually are letting the person draw close to us. I'm scared that if you know me too well, you're not going to accept me. The reality is that you can't accept me until you get to know me. Otherwise, there's no me to know. And so this is all very counterintuitive, but the reality. And that's why the more that we hide, as Adam teaches us, the more distant we are. What does God say? You're banished from the Garden of Eden. What's the Garden of Eden? The Garden of Eden was a place where the presence of God was extremely exposed. God said we used to be very close. Apparently, we've become very distant. Not only because of what you've done wrong, but because of the way you've dealt with what you've done wrong. And so we have to consider this all the time whenever we want to sugarcoat something. Yes, it's going to make me look good, but what it's going to do is hide me. And if it hides me, it creates a distance between me and the other person, whoever that other person on the other side is who I'm having this relationship with. It's like, it's like someone, it's no different than someone who says, if when we have a problem, or if I have a rough day, what do I do if I had a very anxious day? So I have a few shots of scotch, right? I definitely no longer feel anxious, possibly, right? But I'm definitely not in touch with reality. And anyone that wants to be in a relationship with me, I'm not there because I'm intoxicated. I'm under the influence. I'm not able to be me. So as long as I'm not being me to you, how can you have a relationship with me? And that's why it's so counterproductive. Let's read number 4. This is a very insightful quote from Rabbi Tzvi Freeman, Bringing Heaven Down to Earth. It's his second volume of Bringing Heaven Down to Earth. You cannot reach deeper within another than you reach in your own self. This is a very deep, but pay close attention to this, and we'll explain this more later in the class as well. If you love yourself for your achievements, your current assets, the way you do things and handle the world, if those are the reasons why you love yourself, they're based on your achievements and your assets, the way you do things and handle things, and despise yourself for failure in the same things, it follows that your relationship with another will also be transient and superficial. You will only accept and embrace and love other people for their achievements, their assets, the things that they do and the way they handle things. And you'll dislike people for their failures in these areas. To achieve deep and lasting love of another person, you need to first experience the depth within yourself. You need to get deeper than your external activities. An inner core that doesn't change with time or events. If it is the true essence, it is an essence shared by the other person as well, and deep loves become unavoidable. You follow this? Follow this? Now, in concept, this is beautiful. In practicality, this is very challenging. And the question is, how do we're so trained, and we'll discuss this, we're so trained to see the world a certain way. Let me explain it this way. How are we doing, everybody? Everyone's good? No one on the couch has fell asleep yet. Okay. All right, can't be that bad then. Okay. Any questions? We do scotch here. We take the express train, Michael. What's wine going to do? It takes way too long. Okay. No questions? Okay, good. So, God takes a soul, and he says, soul, I got a mission for you. I'm going to send you down to earth. The soul does not want to come down to earth. A lot of restrictions in earth. It's a physical place. Physical things are restricted. Just by time and space, they're very restricted. But God says, you got to go. It's your mission. So the soul gets put into a body. Okay? The body, a baby is born, person comes into the world. That's every one of our stories. Okay? We come into the world, and we come into a world which is dominated by the physical reality. That's what this world is dominated by. It's dominated by body orientation, not by soul orientation. Spiritual and godly things are much harder to access than physical things. Physical things are very easy. And so the experience that we have in this world is a body-dominated experience, a physical-dominated experience, not a spiritual, soul-dominated experience. That's what we come into, and that's what the soul is challenged with. But here's something that's fascinating and very interesting. A body inherently has no value. Okay? A body inherently has no value. And let me explain to you why. A body comes, and I hate to say this, but after 120 years, it goes. It's not a truly existent thing. It's sort of like many other things we have in life. If I love someone because they are young and beautiful, it's a matter of time. I'm beginning to feel it. It's a matter of time when young and, I mean, I lost my hair many years ago already, right? We're young and beautiful, it just doesn't stay. That's not a truth about anyone. And so if I love the person for that reason alone, that's not going to survive. The body, for the same reason, is not eternal, and therefore it inherently doesn't have value. In fact, when God puts the soul into the body, God says, soul, I'm giving you a tool. The tool is the body. And you are going to use this tool to accomplish your mission. But if the body doesn't end up serving the soul, it doesn't have value inherently in and of itself. Its value only comes from its service to valuable things. The valuable thing is the soul. This is very, very significant for us to think about, to actually meditate about. Because when something is inherently not valuable, it becomes a perpetual seeker. It wants to endlessly prove that it is valuable. And the reason why I say endlessly is because being that it will never be able to prove truly that it's valuable, therefore it never ends its pursuit of trying to say to the world, I'm valuable. Can't you see? I am valuable. And it's like a lie. You know, the Talmud says, Sheker ein lo raglayim. A lie has no feet. Right? So what does it do? It says, for example, we caught an Israeli soldier captive. It's a complete lie. Completely fabricated lie. We are destroying the Zionist enemy. This is going on in the news right now, right? It's just people who are just spitting out lie after lie after lie. It's amazing that the world actually believes it when you say it enough times, but it doesn't last. Because something that doesn't have anything to stand on cannot last. And therefore you have to continuously service it to keep it up. Otherwise it starts falling down. That is the reality of the body. It's inherently not valuable. And therefore if we get our identity and our value from a body-oriented perspective, from a body experience, then we will continuously be trying to prove ourselves to the world, which is the normal human experience, which I think we can all relate to by the examples I used before. And another thing is, being that the body is inherently not valuable, point number 2 is, the body always seeks its value from without. It doesn't have value from within, so it seeks it from without. I need you to tell me I'm valuable. Because I'm not really valuable from a body point of view. And so therefore I'm always going without, outside of myself, and I'm desperate, I need you. And that's why I do so many things to gain your acceptance. Because without that I have no acceptance. And what we need to do is begin to change our perspective. Okay? And again, conceptually this sounds wonderful. I hope I'll be able to give you one tool tonight that will help you actually do this. And that's where the big value is. We must find our value from within. Whenever we need anything from without, we know we're in trouble. We have to look within. There's a saying amongst Chabad Hasidim that Chabad Hasidic philosophy demands Pnimiyut. Pnimiyut means inwardness. Don't go outside, always go inside. Stop fixing everyone around you. Fix yourself. Forget about everyone around you. Fix yourself. Work with yourself. Don't work with everyone else. We always have to turn within. When we have a soul-dominating experience, we are in a very, very healthy place. And the reason why is because a soul is inherently valuable. It's a piece of God. It is eternal. It is true. It is inherently valuable. It's one of those things that doesn't need to prove itself. You know, it's like the guy who is trying to appear wealthy. You know, he walks in, he makes sure he has his big watch dangling so everyone can see. He comes with some Lamborghini and parks and slams the door. Everyone needs to know. Why? Because he's proving himself, right? The guy who's, the big billionaire? No, not Trump, actually. Bad example. Bill Gates, Buffett, right? Buffett or Bill Gates. It's like, you can wear a schlumpy shirt. It's not a problem. You don't need to wear, a Xenia suit or whatever. You don't need to you don't need to do that. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone, right? If it's inherently there, it doesn't need to be proven. If I am getting my perspective from my soul, that's where I see myself from, my identity from. That becomes my experience in life, not a body experience, but a soul experience. I have inherent value. I have inherent validation. You can't get greater validation than that. I don't need anyone to tell me I'm fine, that I'm acceptable, that I'm worthy, that I'm lovable, that I matter, that I'm significant, that I make a difference. I know it because I identify with that part of myself. I'm inherently secure. There's nothing insecure about the soul. The soul is never insecure. That's why the soul is selfless. That's why the body is selfish, because it's desperate, so it's selfish. The soul is selfless. It has nothing to worry about. It's completely secure. And it all has to do with the fact that it gets its validation from within. It doesn't have to get its validation from without. Let's go back to an example I gave you before. I'm sitting by the board meeting and I don't have this great idea. Someone gave me a great idea, right? And they asked me, wow, how'd you come up with that great idea, right? And God forbid to say, well, Max, before the meeting, I was speaking to him on the phone and he just said, I told him what we're dealing with and he suggested this. God forbid, right? Why? I need validation. That's a body experience. If I was secure, because I got my validation from my soul, from within, not from other people, then I would say, yeah, Max told me. This is the reason why there's a Mishnah in Ethics of Our Fathers that says this: Ha'omer davar b'shem omro, someone who says a saying, a quote, in the name of the person who said it, mevi ge'ula olam, he brings redemption to the world. He actually is redeeming himself from his body orientation to soul orientation. He's taking himself out of exile. He's taking himself out of slavery and making himself free from that. That's what happens when we say something in the name of someone else. It's the greatest indicator that this person is not reliant on outside things to get his self-worth. And that can only be when we get our self-worth from within, from the one part of us that is 100% secure and 100% valuable, and that's our soul. Any questions?
So
okay.
it's
Yes.
sort of like being neurotic is better than being weak character.
Being neurotic is better than being weak character.
Having a weak character.
What do you mean by neurotic?
Neurotic means you take responsibility and you don't.
Yes. So I don't like to associate the word neurotic with responsibility, because I think neurotic maybe to...
It's a more sick kind of...
Yes,
term,
right.
but-
Let's say responsible. Let's use the word responsibility. 1,000%. People who get their value from their soul never blame other people and take full responsibility, and don't always try to excuse by their circumstances and the people around them, but say, what can I do about this situation? Or what have I done that I need to fix about this situation? Because all the other stuff is completely irrelevant. 1,000%. I'm not going there, but responsibility plays a direct role in this whole conversation. And the result of a person connecting with the soul versus the body is a responsible person versus an irresponsible or a blaming person, a victim. Responsible or victim. Powerful or weak, as you said. Exactly. Okay. So how do we change from the body experience to the soul experience? I want to give you a very short process, okay? And I believe, because I use this process all the time, I believe that this process can have a profound impact on your life. And that is this: simply start creating awareness in your life through creating pauses in your life. Okay? This can be very hard, especially if you're emotional by nature. Okay? I mean, I'd say that seriously, right? But we're also desperate by nature, which makes us emotional. We're desperate. So when someone accuses us of something, we're terrified because we're losing approval, and therefore we immediately respond. We have to stop doing that and give ourselves about, like they have on the radio, a 7-second delay. Give yourself a 7-second delay. Stop. Okay? And ask yourself when you're criticized or disapproved. Okay? Whenever you're criticized and disapproved, just stop for a minute before you respond. Okay? And think to yourself for a minute and ask yourself whether you are dependent on whether this person agrees with you or not. Are you dependent on this person to be an acceptable, good person whose existence matters and is significant? Does their disagreement with you change whether you are significant or not? Just think about that for a minute. Okay? For example, let's say someone says right now in the class, right? Rabbi, I completely disagree with what you're saying. You have these false, convoluted psychological notions, and you should, before you get up and speak, you should go get a psychology degree. Okay? Let's say someone says that. All right? It's possible. Right? So someone says that. Right? So now, I pause for a second. I think, 1 second. Okay. They think that my ideas are convoluted. Okay. I'm scared now. Why am I scared? Because I'm scared that I'm becoming meaningless. This person's reminding me that I'm not good and I don't know what I'm doing and who am I anyway, etc. I say, well, 1 second, 1 second. They disagree with what I'm saying. I matter as much now as I did 5 minutes ago. I get my value from my soul, process it intellectually. I get my value from my soul. God made me. God's giving me life at this second. I matter very much. I'm not under threat. And this person can disagree with me. And it's all good. And they may be right. And they may be wrong. I'll have to assess that. It's going to take some time. So suddenly, I turn to the guy and say, you know something? I hear you. I hear you. And I'm happy you shared that with me. I'm going to need to process this after the class is over. And let me give it some thought. And maybe I'll need to speak to you more about this to understand if, in fact, you're correct or not. That's it. And I'm not caught up in it. Because I stop for a minute and ask myself, I address the fear that I have. The fear is that I'm insignificant and I don't matter. Because someone's attacking me. And I stop and say, 1 second. Where do I get my value from? I get it from my soul. I am inherently valuable. No one can take that away from me. And I don't need anyone to give that to me. I am inherently valuable. And then suddenly, we remain objective instead of personalizing every situation that we go to, we find ourselves in. My favorite example is this. It's the husband washing the dishes, and the wife is drying them. And he passes the plate to his wife, and the wife says, hey, this plate's still dirty. What's a classic husband response? Come on, women, what do they say? I'll say it for you. Okay. Oh, if your husband is here, don't answer. Okay. If your husband, so what the guy says is, if you don't like the way I wash the dishes, wash them yourself. Right? The guy's nuts. The guy, he definitely needs some help. Right? Although I guess every guy needs help. So he definitely needs help. Why is he getting so excited about such a simple thing? I just said the plate's dirty. I mean, why don't you just rewash it? What's the big deal? But what's happening is he's personalizing what she's telling him, and he's not even hearing what she's telling him because he's threatened by the fact that I am not significant. I don't even know how to wash dishes. That's what he heard. She didn't say that. She just said it's dirty. And because whatever. So bottom line is, if we pause for a moment, and we say, 1 second. She said it's dirty, right? I'm feeling like, I'm not significant. 1 second, I'm very significant. My significance does not depend on whether I know how to wash dishes or not, or any of that. And then I say, what do you say? Oh, the dish is dirty, no problem. Wash it again. That is an objective response. And that requires pause and awareness. Pause and awareness. We pause and we become aware of what's going on in us in response to that comment. Yes?
So how about the opposite, where there angry at the husband
Mm-hmm.
and says, "You don't know how to dry dishes,"
Mm-hmm.
in a very, negative way because she's down with the husband.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it the same response back?
It's the exact same thing. It really makes no difference. What goes on outside of me does not determine what is inside of me. Only I determine what's going on inside of me. I have to take responsibility for that. Nothing else determines what's outside unless I permit it to. And then I can blame and live in that bliss of not taking responsibility and blaming and creating more and more distance from the people. That's why there's perpetual distance with these arguments in relationships. Because everyone is hiding essentially from each other like Adam was doing. How are we doing? No major objections. Any minor ones? Okay. Huh?
You're doing a good job.
I'm doing a good job. Thank you. Oh, I needed that. I was waiting. I was hoping. I spend hours on this talk so that I can hear that I'm worthy.
Rabbi, isn't that really attitude? I mean, I can't do anything about what you say, but my attitude towards it
Yeah.
is what creates everything else around that.
Yes, our awareness creates different. Will create, and you can call it an attitude. I would definitely, yeah. I think that's another way of talking about it. Attitude, definitely. Some people have an attitude. Their attitude is to seek acceptance from without, which is a very unhealthy attitude, and then acceptance from within, which is a very healthy attitude. Like some people have an attitude of seeing the positive, and some people have an attitude of seeing the negative. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about how to give unconditional acceptance to others. Once we begin to realize that we are not dependent on anyone or anything to know that we are significant, how can we pass it on to others? Okay? Another radical idea. The first thing you need to do is consistent with the concept that every effect you want to have in the world needs to begin where? Within, not without. Ironically, the way I make the world without better is by fixing that which is within. That's actually the way it works. When the Baal Shem Tov was a boy of, they say, 5 or 6, some people say he was even younger, he lost both of his parents. He was an orphan. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, a brilliant, godly man, was an orphan from both parents at a very young age. And he shared what his father told him on his deathbed. If you look at number 6, you'll see it. The Baal Shem Tov was orphaned from his father, the hidden tzaddik Rabbi Eliezer. It's number 6 on page 6. At the age of 5, here it says, the last words spoken to him by his holy father before his passing were, Yisraelik, fear nothing but God alone. Love every single Jew without exception, with the full depth of your heart and with the fire of your soul, no matter who he is or how he behaves. This is a profound, profound lesson that all of us can hear every single day.
The rabbi didn't tell the woman who was being beaten by her husband that.
Didn't tell her what?
That she should, to the full depth of your heart and the fire of your soul, love the Moroccan man that's beating the crap out of her. He's Jewish.
Right. So, very good questions. You're asking a question about loving problematic individuals.
I definitely
Yes.
am asking that.
Okay. So you're asking a very good question. So on one level, there is a way of connecting with such people, but on the other level, that must be done in great distance. One of the things that I always say, there's a clear line that is drawn, and that's always drawn where someone's safety is at risk. Whenever someone's safety is at risk, you have to create great distance. There are naive people in this world, actually, who embrace and try and help people who are, we'll say, sick. They're sick. Yeah. And they're sick and dangerous. And actually, that is a wrong thing to do because they're putting themselves in danger, which is actually forbidden for someone to do. You're not allowed to put yourself in a place of danger. So to say that to this woman would have been a very cruel thing to say and a wrong thing to say, which is why the Rebbe didn't say it. I understand your question of how to deal with that. It's a tangent. It's a good question, and it's a tangent because it's going off on dealing with a very sliver of a segment. But we're dealing with generally the general population. Good question. There's a way of connecting soul to soul with people and valuing a person for their godly spark that doesn't mean marrying them. It doesn't even mean doing business with them or anything else of that matter. And it's never at the price of losing touch with reality. You also have to know when someone is so consumed with unhealthiness, you have to be aware of that too. You also have to know that they have a spark of God in them. Okay? Okay. That's about the extent. So here's something very interesting. The Baal Shem Tov's father first tells him, fear nothing other than God. He says, don't be in fear of the whole world because you need them for your acceptance. There's only one place that you get your acceptance from, and that's God. Don't turn to anything else and live in fear of everyone around you because you need their acceptance in order to know that you're significant. You don't. All you need is God to know you're significant, and God putting you in this universe tells you that you're significant. God giving you a spark of Himself tells you that you are significant. After you know that you are significant, that's when you can actually be able to love every single Jew without exception, no matter how they behave. And I think really the way I read the nuance here of how someone behaves is that it makes no difference whether they are religious or not religious. But maybe not, because I'm interpreting that. It doesn't say that, that's for sure. In other words, the point is, it doesn't make a difference whether they're doing this or doing that. The fact is that they are significant because they have a soul, and that makes them inherently significant. There's a very interesting story that the Talmud tells us with Hillel, which it's a very famous story, so I'm sure some of you know, where a convert comes to Shammai and says, teach me the whole Torah while I'm standing on one foot and I'll convert. Shammai was holding a yardstick at the time, which came into good use. He started to chase the guy with the yardstick. The guy ran for his life. Okay, maybe not for his life, but he just, Shammai said, get out of here, you're a nudnik. Okay. He goes to Hillel, who had a very different disposition than Shammai, and he says, Hillel, teach me the whole Torah on one foot, and I'll convert. He says, I'll do that. Madesani lach lachavrech lo savid. That which you don't like done to you, don't do to another. That's what he told him. The rest of the Torah's commentary, go and learn it. He said, I just gave you the whole Torah. That which you hate done to you, don't do to another. Okay. Anyone know another version of that statement? Tell it to me from what? That's the other concept I was speaking about before. But this is a little bit different. What would be that which I hate done to me, I shouldn't do to you? Say that in positive words. That's a negative way of saying it. Say it in a positive way. Okay, that's right. Okay, do unto others. In Torah language, which is what I'm looking for, is v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your fellow as yourself. I don't know if we have in a Jewish source, do unto others. But anyway, regardless, do we? No, it's not Jewish, right? So Rabbi Akiva said, love your fellow as yourself. This is the whole Torah, right? This is a great rule in the Torah. Hillel said the same thing, but he said it in a negative term. The third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, discusses this in a Hasidic discourse. And he asks, why would Hillel say it in a negative term? It's always better to speak in positive terms than negative terms. And so he explains a profound psychological concept, and that is this. The thing that every single person hates more than anything else is when they are exposed. Adam was exposed. We hate being exposed. As long as you didn't expose me, I'm comfortable covering up my faults and my wrongdoings and going on with my life, and it's all good. The second you cover it up, you uncover it, you've exposed me. And I get furious. Why did you do that to me? Why did you make me so vulnerable? Why did you expose me? That which you hate done to you, don't do to another. Don't expose another person. Now, This is what he explains. The reason, why is it that before you exposed me, I was living fine? Nothing changed. My fault remains the same. I had the fault before you revealed it. I have the fault after you revealed it. What changed? Before you revealed it, I accept myself. I love myself. I'm fine with myself because I accept and love myself. But the second things outside of me threaten that, it makes me question whether I'm significant, and I have an attack because I begin to think I'm not significant, I'm threatened. So the same thing I hate done to me, I should not do to you. How can I not do it to you? If I begin to love you the way I love myself. When I love myself, I don't see my faults. Do you walk around the whole day thinking about your faults? Hopefully not. It's a very unhealthy thing to do. But the fact of the matter is we all have plenty of faults, but we go through our day and we're fine because we overlook them. If I loved you as much as I loved myself, I would overlook your faults too. I wouldn't see your faults when I saw you. That goes right back to the statement we had from Rabbi Freeman. You cannot reach deeper within another than you reach within your own self. So the deeper I reach within myself, the more I actually accept myself, the more I am able to accept you. I become an accepting person. I begin to value people from their soul, not from their body, because I value myself from my soul, not from my body. The way I look at myself is going to be the way I look at you. If I have a shallow perspective of self, I'm going to have a shallow perspective of you. And that's why the first thing to do in giving other people unconditional acceptance is clean out your own closet. That means begin to develop a soul perspective and not a body perspective. And what you need to do is stop cleaning out other people's closets. You're never going to be effective doing it, as you probably know, right? So you're married for 35 years and you told the guy the same thing every single day of your marriage and he's still doing it, right? Because it doesn't work. What works is when we make a change within ourselves. What's also ironic is that the more I accept myself, I know that I am acceptable, the less I'm interested, and that means the more I accept you, the less I'm interested in changing you. That's just another very interesting thing as well. Another very important point is this. When someone in some way criticizes you or threatens you where you want to respond, right? You want to attack them, you want to fix them, right? Remember one thing, the reason why they're splashing you with water is because they're drowning. They feel threatened by you. You ever see this? It's amazing, because I didn't always believe this, but I learned part of this from my wife, right? Children always act up, right? They're a perfect example of this whole conversation. Why do children act up? Because they want to know that they're significant. And if we don't teach them in a healthy way that they're significant, they do all types of crazy things to make sure we know that they exist. That's exactly what they're doing, right? Now, sometimes when a child is threatened, and children, there are children of all ages, by the way. So when a child is threatened, when a child is threatened, and so therefore they act up, they start screaming, they start doing, acting in a crazy way, very often, the way we resolve that is very simply grabbing them, hugging them, showering them with kisses, and telling them how much we love them. Essentially, how much we accept them. The reason why they're in fear is because they are living in that mode of, I lost acceptance because I was just yelled at or I was just criticized. And when we grab them and hug them, we're fixing the whole problem. We don't have to actually fix them. We actually have to simply accept them. There is nothing wrong other than they don't think that they are acceptable. And that's why we have to realize all they're doing is, when they're yelling and disturbing us, they have nothing against us. They're just yelling, see me, know that I exist. Know that I am significant. That's really what they're saying. We're collateral damage. And the more we are aware of that it's the child is like drowning and desperate for acceptance, the way we respond to the problem is not by yelling at them and punching them, which only aggravates the problem. I'm not saying that we should never punish, but that's a different discussion. But we embrace them because we understand that what they're doing really is actually drowning. let me wrap this up with a few final comments on this. In creating change in another person. I'm going to recommend that everyone reads number 9, okay, on your own, which is just a comment from a discussion the Rebbe once gave about rebuking other people. And essentially the Rebbe says that there are 2 things that you need to do before you rebuke another person. One is self-examination. Find the thing that you want to tell off the other person about, find that in yourself and fix it in yourself first. That's number 1. And when you're speaking to the other person, include yourself in the discussion so that they know that it's your problem as well. And number 2 is you always have to accept the other person before you reprimand them. If you don't accept them truly and completely before you reprimand them, what do they feel? Judgment. They feel alienation. They feel they're not accepted. That's their greatest fear, and they can't hear anything from you. When someone knows that you accept them 100%, they can hear everything from you because they're not threatened by it. They don't feel that they're not being accepted, which is their greatest fear. There was the Rebbe before when his father-in-law was the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe was the Rebbe. There was a Rabbi Edelman who told over the story. I think it was 1945. He said he was standing in the hallway in the what is the Lubavitch World Headquarters, and the Rebbe came down from upstairs where his father-in-law was, who was then the Rebbe, and he said, "Let me share with you the conversation I just had with my father-in-law." He said the Rebbe was already very active in the movement, and he told his father-in-law, "I have many people coming into my office all the time to see me for all different types of things. Some of them are religious, some of them are not religious, all different types of Jews, you know. But the religious element is important for this conversation." So he said that, when people who are not religious come into my office, I embrace them just like I embrace someone who's religious. They're a fellow Jew. I embrace them completely, right? But I'm concerned that maybe I'm doing something wrong, because maybe through embracing them, I am they will think that I am supporting their choices and their lifestyle, etc., and maybe that's not a good thing. By the way, this concern is always a very big concern. If we always, I always say to myself, I used to say to myself a lot more, if I don't say something, they're going to continue doing it, right? Like as if I must say something to stop the problem. Although I've said something around 50 times already in the past and it didn't stop the problem. But I must stop the problem, right? Because I feel like I may be condoning what they're doing. So the previous Rebbe told him, which you can also read, that he said that his father-in-law said to him, God created a father and mother with a natural instinct. It's in the bottom of page 8. So that no matter how many children they have enough love for all their children. This is the way God created the world. What happens when within a big family there is one child who is handicapped, God forbid, and can't move their hand or can't move their foot? What happens? For that child, the parents have a special love and closeness due to the fact that he's lacking. Similarly, if a Jew comes into your office and observes all the mitzvahs, you embrace him wholeheartedly. However, suppose a Jew who is missing a hand or a foot comes into your office, meaning he doesn't put on tefillin or he doesn't go to the synagogue. To that Jew, you must have deeper love, because spiritually he needs support. He's lacking. The more he is lacking, the greater your love must be towards that Jew. In other words, there always must be more love and more acceptance, never less love and less acceptance. Because that is the bedrock upon which you can speak to someone. If there isn't sound acceptance and love, you don't have a basis upon which, a context within which you can actually have a healthy conversation. Why? Because a person is terrified that you don't accept them, and that's their greatest fear, and that's all that they're going to hear. I want to conclude with one last teaching. There's a verse in the book of Leviticus which tells us this in number 11. You see that on page 9? Number 11. It says, "You shall not hate your brother in your heart." There's actually a prohibition in the Torah to hate a fellow Jew. Not allowed to hate a fellow Jew. It's a tough one, huh? You shall rebuke your fellow. If you see your fellow do something wrong, you should rebuke them. But you shall not ascribe sin to him. That's what the verse says. Here's the Rebbe's comment on this verse. The command, you shall rebuke, is preceded by the words, you shall not hate your brother. For this is a precondition for the rebuke. The Torah continues, and you shall not ascribe sin to him. For if the rebuke was ineffectual, you are certainly the one responsible. For yours were not words coming from the heart. The you, by the way, is an emphasis of the Rebbe's. You are certainly the one responsible. If yours was not words coming from the heart. When we rebuke people, what do we always say? Oh, they never listen. They never listen, right? The Rebbe is saying, no. Stop putting blame outside. Look within. The reason why the person is not listening to your rebuke is because they can't listen. They're too threatened by the fact that you don't accept them. If you truly and genuinely love and accept them, when you speak to them about a fault that they have, they will easily be able to hear you. The problem isn't with them. The problem is within. Before we want to speak to others and fix others, we need to know that we accept them 100%. And only within that context are we able to properly have an effect on them. So in conclusion, when we have a body value system, we perpetually seek validation from other things and other people. When we adopt a soul value system, we gain unconditional acceptance automatically because the soul is inherently valuable and it's inherently validated. It's a piece of God. We can only give what we have. If we live in fear of judgment, we give out judgment to others. If we accept ourselves because we get in touch with our soul, it gives us the power to be able to accept others because we see them for their soul. Accept others, and they're going to feel safe accepting you. The more open we are, the less we hide, the closer we can be to others, the closer others can be to us, the safer we feel with others, and the safer they feel with us, and it transforms all of our human experience and our godly experience. Have a wonderful evening. I'm here for questions and objections, by the way. So.